You're tuned in to the only all-sports talk network in the Middle East, IsraelSportsRadio.com.
This is Dimitri Salita, and you're listening to IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Hi, everybody, and this is the Radio Mike Show on Israel Sports Radio, and I really appreciate all the comments that are flying in, and all the comments you could either find me on YouTube and post a comment over there. If you have any questions that you need answered or anything that is bugging you or any good suggestions, feel free to email me at radiomike33@gmail.com. Radio Mike, M-I-K-E, 33@gmail.com. And on the line, I have... How are you doing, Marty?
Hi, Radio Mike. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. And how are you doing tonight?
Well, I'm doing fine. You know, we're in the midst of all these playoffs. I know, hockey is not your forte, so let's jump right away about that football draft. You know, we were joking a little bit, or at least I was joking, that, Geno Smith, maybe, the Jets would draft. Get rid of T.
Radio Mike, you're cutting in and out. So, could you repeat what you just said?
Oh, sorry about that. Anything that you saw interesting things that you saw?
In the draft, yes. I thought there were some very interesting picks. I think that the Jets picking up Geno Smith was very interesting. I think it could mean the end of the Mark Sanchez era in New York. The Bills picking up E.J. Manuel, that could be very interesting. I wonder how he'll do. The Bills just traded for Kevin Cobb, so I thought was going to be the quarterback there, but that's up in the air. Maybe it'll be Manuel. And my team, the Eagles, drafted Matt Barkley out of Southern Cal. So I think there's some very interesting picks, and it should be interesting. Should be a very interesting year, and I'm looking forward to the start of the season. Of course, this week we have the rookie mini camp. So I'm anxious. My team is the Eagles, so I'm interested to see how their new draftees are working out in the rookie mini camp.
Okay, very, very good. What do you think about this baseball season? I mean, you have the Philadelphia Phillies. They're tied actually with the Mets in third place in the National League East. I know you're a big Philly fan. They've won 14 games. I believe 9 of those wins are against either the Mets or the Miami Marlins, and and they have like 16 losses. So if you take away the Mets and Marlins games against the Philadelphia Phillies, their record would be something like 5-15.
Yes. They're doing very poorly, and like you said, they're only beating up on the lesser placed teams. But one of those lesser placed teams, the Marlins, beat them up 14-2 yesterday, and the big news out of Philadelphia is what's become of the great Roy Halladay, the former Cy Young Award winner. He just got shellacked yesterday for 9 runs in like 3 innings, and he was placed on the disabled list today.
Yeah, I believe, yes. I believe I saw on the Newswire this afternoon that he was put on the disabled list because he's having, I think it was either elbow or shoulder problems.
Shoulder problems.
Okay, so that might be...
It's a very controversial thing in Philadelphia because he apparently wasn't ready to pitch. He knew about the shoulder problems ahead of time. Did not disclose to the club his injuries, and he wanted to go out there and gut it out like a true warrior. but at the expense of his team. So now he's on the disabled list, and in the post game press conference yesterday, our manager Charlie Manuel was surprised, didn't know about these shoulder problems, so he kept it from the club. So the controversy is, when a player wants to gut it out, wants to play through pain, that's all well and good and admirable. But when they keep it from the news from the club, and it hurts the club, that's not good. So that's the big news out of Philadelphia today.
And they call him Doc Halliday. That's really a misnomer because he's really not a doc. Okay, so with that in mind, we see that the Phillies aren't doing all that well.
No.
Let's move on to the playoffs, the basketball playoffs. Some excitement over there.
Yes.
I don't know where we should start, but let's start with the New Jersey Nets. They lost in a Game 7. After they were down 3-1. They lost Game 4 in a triple overtime. That game was really a horrible game. They were up by 14 points in the fourth quarter with 3 minutes to go. They blew that lead, and then they blew the game in the third overtime, sending it down 3-1, 3-1, and then they forced a Game 7 back Saturday night in Brooklyn, and they didn't play any defense in the second quarter. At halftime, Chicago was up by 17 points, and they never could recuperate from that. So, any thoughts on that series?
Yes, Radio Mike. As you know, in that crucial seventh game, Joe Johnson all but disappeared, and what showed up in that last game was the playoff experience of the Chicago Bulls and the playoff inexperience of the Brooklyn Nets. Yeah, individually, some of the Nets may have had some playoff experience, but as a team, they did not have any playoff experience, and it was very telling in that seventh game. Plus, Chicago's Joakim Noah, he seemed to get better. He had been suffering with plantar fasciitis, and apparently his condition had gotten better. But they were so banged up, they were so outmanned, but still managed to play well and overcome the Nets. They had a number of guys who were out with the flu, like Luol Deng and Nate Robinson played with the flu, and but it was a testament to their toughness, to the tough-mindedness of their coach, who really instilled in them the will to win. And as we speak tonight, Chicago's already playing Game 1 right now against the Miami Heat, and they jumped out to an early lead. So who knows? How do you see this first-round series, Radio Mike, between Chicago and the Miami Heat?
I'm still not finished. I think I would be shocked if the Bulls can actually upset the Miami Heat. I know the Bulls did stop the Miami Heat, their winning streak, but in a 7-game series, I would be shocked if Chicago won more than 2 games.
Yeah.
I think Miami is a shoo-in, and then they're gonna, beat either Oklahoma or maybe Memphis in the finals. So I think it's Miami, but I really thought, and I really agree with you, the inexperience really showed down the stretch in that the Nets Chicago Bulls 7th game.
Mm-hmm.
But it was also, Joe Johnson, shooting 1 for 10. There were a lot of bad calls that went against the Nets. And they still had a chance to win the game at the end, and they just didn't. I don't know. I'm sure they took it seriously enough, but it really looks like the guys like Boozer and Noah. They really wanted the game. You saw their intensity, and you didn't really see it that much. You saw Wallace a little bit in the third quarter. I think he scored 11 points in the third quarter to cut the 17-point deficit down to 7 points. But you really saw the intensity and the Warriors in the Chicago Bulls, which was really lacking in the New York Nets, the Brooklyn Nets. And then right away, as soon as the game's not even, the game's finished, but, within 24 hours, P.J. Carlesimo, the coach of the Nets, he gets fired.
Oh, I didn't even know that. He was fired. Okay.
Yeah, he gets fired. And I did hear an interview this afternoon. He took it in stride. He was very upset about it. Of course, he didn't badmouth anyone because he doesn't want to get another job. There are only 30 coaching jobs in NBA, and he does want to coach again very badly. But he said that the Nets are a team on the uprise. That they're going up. They're getting better every year. Last year they were a lottery team, and now this year they made it to the playoffs. They're a very, very good team. They can win 50 games every year. But I really think it was not fair with P.J. Carlesimo to get fired because they're a very good team, but they don't have any really superstars. Brook Lopez is a lot better than he used to be. I mean, he's becoming a real force at center. Mm-hmm. But they don't have the championship caliber team. I really think they're like maybe one player away to get them over the hump. Now let's go for a second. Yesterday the Knicks really did not look too sharp against the Indiana Pacers. Now they're down 1-0. But there again, you don't have somewhat the intensity as the Knicks versus other teams. And I think there's somewhat of an immaturity right before Game 4 when the Knicks were playing in Boston. They show up all in black suits like they're going to a funeral. In other words, the funerals of the Celtics because they're going to get swept. And of course, you never want to antagonize your opponent. You want to beat your opponent. You don't want to give him anything to rally behind. You just go out and beat him. And you can try to beat him as much as you can. You don't let take the foot off the pedal. You got to keep on till you win the game. You didn't win the game. And
yes, I agree with you 100%, Radio Mike. I'm surprised. To me, it wasn't really very professional of the Knicks to do that. It's what it is bulletin board material.
Right.
Why give a team bulletin board material? They haven't enough incentive. It is. I think it was in poor taste at the least. So
and then our good friend J.R. Smith, he gets suspended for a game, and he deserved to get suspended. And even in Game 5, he still didn't have his head together on the game. You're supposed to try to win the game. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to win the game. You're not trying to outduel your one opponent there. And I think they're a very immature team.
Yeah.
I think they're going to lose against Indiana. Even though I think they might be just as good as them. But there is one thing, Carmelo Anderson, the last 4 games, he's really been horrible shooting, and he might have a bad shoulder there. And so that's something to watch. But if you do have a bad shoulder and you can't shoot 10 for 36 or whatever he shot yesterday, it's called pass the ball to somebody else. Maybe someone else can get the ball in the hoop. So I think that's going to be a series. Maybe that might go 6, and I think I'm going to say that Indiana would win on that one.
Yeah.
But do you think Chicago even has a chance against Miami?
I think believe it or not, Radio Mike, I think they have a chance. Chicago has a toughness, both a physical and mental toughness that some of the other teams don't have. Plus, their center, Joakim Noah, is just a beast under the boards, and a lot of the other teams don't rebound as well. I think, nobody really smart would bet on the Bulls against the Heat, but I do think it could be an interesting series. I think Chicago can give Miami all they want, and I think it could be very interesting. And I do like Indiana against the Knickerbockers because Indiana can be a very physical team. much more physical than the Celtics, and I think the Knickerbockers are in for a real fight. But I think one of the more interesting stories of the playoffs is the Golden State Warriors out in the West, who knocked off the number 2 seed Denver Nuggets. I think that was very, very surprising, and I'm happy for the fans out there. They're really, I don't know if you know much about the Golden State Warrior fans, but they're really rabid. It's a raucous house playing out there, and I'm very happy for Golden State. They're overachievers at this point. What do you think about Golden State, Mike?
Well, I know. Well, you really do know the Warriors. I don't think the Warriors. I mean, they did beat Denver, but I don't think they're going to beat the Spurs. I mean, the Spurs. They still have they have veterans players there, and I think they're not finished yet. I think the Spurs might even make it into the finals. But you would know, and I guess you've kept tabs on the Warriors throughout the season because you do split the. I know you're bi-coastal. You're part of the time you're in Forest Hills, and part of the time you live in the San Francisco area. So so that's why we have you on the air, because I know you're a tremendous basketball expert, and. But who do you like coming out of the West? Do you like the?
Well, I mean, I think the smart money says it's between San Antonio and Oklahoma City. Now, I think the loss of Russell Westbrook to Oklahoma City may be too much to overcome in the long run. Yes, it was it didn't hurt them in against their series against the Houston Rockets, but playing against Memphis, and if they get past Memphis, playing against San Antonio, that could be different. I think San Antonio is the ultimate professional team. They have some wily veterans, and I think outstanding coach in Greg Popovich. I think San Antonio would be the smart choice, the easy choice to come out of the West. If Russell Westbrook was still playing, maybe it would be different. But I think right now, I would say our finals would be San Antonio against Miami, and I think that could be a real interesting matchup. But we got a long way to go till we get there.
What do you think of Memphis? They have any chance against the Thunder?
I think possibly. I think they're overachievers. I like this guy Zach Randolph, who's really playing very well. Who I believe he used to play for the Knickerbockers.
Yes, he was with the Knickerbockers. It was a horrible match there. He never came. I'm not sure where he came from originally. He wasn't drafted by the Knicks. I believe he came through a trade, and he never really amounted to anything with the Knicks, and the Knicks were only too happy to get rid of him. But he's a force out there for the Memphis Grizzlies, and you never know. You have a change of scenery with some of these ball players, and you never know what could happen. But I kind of like Durant, but that's a very good point you had, that Westbrook is out. That might be a big hit for the Thunder. It's the playoffs have just started. We're down with one in the first round. Now we're in the second round, so we have a ways to go. And of course, we're about a fifth of the way through in the baseball season, and the football season. They're going to start in pads in about 2 or 3 months. So it's 12 months a year, all these sports, and I really appreciate, Marty, for you taking out the time and giving your expert opinion on all these sports and all your ideas and predictions. And once again, this is the Radio Mike Show on Israel Sports Radio. And please, I appreciate all comments. Send them to radiomike33@gmail.com. And thank you so much, Marty Reiss, for being on the show tonight.
Well, thank you, Radio Mike. It's always a pleasure to talking sports with you.
My pleasure.
Right. Bye-bye.
You're tuned in to the only all-sports talk network in the Middle East, IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Hey folks, Kagan here. As you know, I'm always staying on top of the fitness world, keeping up with current trends. One form of exercise that's been around for ages and is currently being rediscovered is suspension bodyweight training. So if you're looking for a way to get in shape, improve your health, and train your body to move in new ways, then the X1 by Israel Gym Systems is for you. Find out more on our website at www.israelgym.com or look for our page on Facebook, Israel Gym Systems X1. Israel Gym X1. Higia Hazman.
You're already using a credit card every day. Why not feel good every time you make a purchase? When using the HAS Advantage Support Israel Visa card, a percentage of each purchase you make will be donated to your choice of 24 Israeli-based charities, while still earning a reward point for every dollar spent. But wait, these rewards are even better than the standard rewards you get, especially when using them towards Israel travel, with the best conversion rate on El Al's Matmeed Frequent Flyer program. Earn double points at some of your favorite supermarkets and restaurants in the U.S., as well as discounts all over Israel. If you love traveling and supporting Israel, HAS Advantage is the card for you. Just give us a call toll-free at 1-866-6-ISRAEL. Sign up right now with the code ISR10 to earn 2,500 bonus points. That's 1-866-647-7235. HAS Advantage. Earn rewards. Support Israel. Offer valid for U.S. citizens only. Terms and conditions do apply. When dialing from within Israel, please dial 1-800-200-818.
Israel Sports Dynamics specializes in football consulting, equipment, uniforms, and more. Great brands such as Nike, Russell Athletics, Schutt Sports Products, and many more. Just one call away. With over 30 years coaching experience with university and professional athletes, Terry Hill, owner of ISD, can advise you for all your sports needs. Call 054-581-3248. That's 054-581-3248, or visit our website at www.isdisrael.com. If that's not easy enough, click on the ISD banner on the Israel Sports Radio website and be part of the game.
Are you tired of paying for expensive gym memberships that you don't use? Are you frustrated by not seeing results? It's time for the X1. Israel Gym Systems is proud to launch the X1 suspension and bodyweight training system. Lose weight, build muscle, improve balance, coordination, and flexibility. With your purchase of the X1, you'll receive a free membership to IsraelGym.com and access to our archives of videos and exercise plans. Sign up today at www.IsraelGym.com and get ready for the new you. Israel Gym X1. Higia Hazman.
Broadcasting live from Israel.
IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Hello, hi. Is this Jonathan Schwab?
This is.
Okay, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
This is Radio Mike calling from the Israel Sports Radio and Sports Radio. Thanks, and good night, everybody.
My pleasure. Have a good night.
Hello, hi. Is this Jonathan Schwab?
This is.
Okay, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
This is Radio Mike calling from the Israel Sports Radio, and pleasure to talk to you. Hopefully I have all my mechanical stuff in order here, and I think we're good to go. And I know you're a big expert on baseball. This is the Radio Mike Show. And I want to get some of your impressions on this young season. It's about a fifth of the way done already. I know in New York, a lot of people are into hockey right now and into the basketball playoffs, with the Knicks losing today and the Nets being ousted last night. My personal favorite is baseball, and I know that is yours. You're a big Met fan. So what are some of your impressions on the new season? What do you think of the Mets' chances, and what do you think so far of the Mets? Let's start there.
All right, I'll tell you. So far, the Mets are 3 games under 500. They're doing pretty well. I think this is a team that may have an outside chance at the playoffs in some way, which would be a very pleasant surprise for those of us who root for the Mets. We weren't expecting too much this season. Been 2 great surprises for the Mets this season, one bigger than the other. One of them is Matt Harvey, who's a young guy. He pitched only a couple games last year, but he's been great so far this season. He's undefeated, and that's even if it's not something for this year, that's a very bright indication for the future that we have someone great on our hands can make up for what we lost in Santana. The other big surprise in terms of hitting has been, a couple good hitters this year, but mostly what you'd expect. David Wright, who we know is good, but John Buck, who the Mets got seemingly just as a stopgap at catcher until they bring up Travis Darnow, and he's been absolutely on fire. He hit 10 home runs so far this year. He's leading the Mets in hitting, and that's been a really, really pleasant surprise. He's carrying a lot of this team, and I think he's largely responsible for the fact that they're so close to 500.
Yes, well, that's interesting you bring that up, but do you think Matt Harvey, if he keeps on pitching like this, he could actually start the All-Star game at Citi Field for the Mets, which would be a real thrill for the Met fans. They don't have too much to root for, but that would be a real thrill for Met fans. But another thing about Matt Harvey that might be something to watch is after he faces a team 2 or 3 times, maybe they're going to figure out his motion a little bit better, maybe his the types of pitches, his arm angle, stuff like that. Do you think he's going to be able to keep his own after pitching through certain teams, like good hitting teams like Atlanta or Washington, after he faces them 2 or 3 times?
No, I don't think so. I don't think that means he's going to, the wheels are going to come off completely and he's going to collapse and be nothing. But I do think, as you said, it's going to be more of a challenge deeper in the season as he's facing teams for the second, third, maybe even 4th time for some of the in-division teams that have good offenses. The other thing definitely to be concerned about as the year goes on, this is a guy, he's only ever pitched 60 innings in the major league level. I think last year he split the year between the majors and the minors. He's never pitched, a full 200-inning year. You definitely want to keep an eye on him, see if he can hold up. And obviously the Mets, want to make sure that they're keeping him healthy. It's not worth it to have him injured over the course of this year. And we've seen baseball move more in the direction of making sure that those younger pitchers are kept to the appropriate workload. It was a huge story last year with the Washington Nationals, how they did that with Steven Strasburg. I wouldn't be surprised if Mets did something similar, certainly if they're not.
Well, it's interesting you bring up Steven Strasburg because he's never pitched into the 8th inning, and Matt Harvey already is pitching into the 8th inning. So I don't know if they're babying him like, you had the Java rules when he first came up, and first he was a reliever, then a starter, then a reliever, and I think they really toyed and messed up his whole career. They didn't give him a defined role, and I don't think Java Chamberlain reached his potential. But I think sometimes, you can't baby a pitcher like you have Nolan Ryan. He would pitch, till his arm fell off. All the, Juan Marichal, Bob Gibson, that's a little bit before your time, but, you started the game, you finished the game, going, this new idea of only, going pitch counts of 90 pitches, 100 pitches, that's a new thing that started maybe 10 years ago. I'm not sure it's really the smartest way to go about things. But another thing that you brought up that's very interesting is John Buck. He's had just a great season so far. And he's replacing the main catcher for the Mets last year was Josh Thole. Now, Josh Thole last year in 105 games had a total of 1 home run and 21 RBIs. John Buck already has 10 home runs, and he has, about 28 RBIs, I believe.
Well, I think 29 RBIs, and I'm pretty sure he's even leading the league.
Yeah, the difference in catchers this year and last year is just fantastic. And right now, it's a very long season, but I think one of the big surprises is probably the Toronto Blue Jays. Everyone thought they're going to, really, if not win the pennant or the Eastern Division in the American League East, at least they're going to seriously compete for that. And now they're mired in last place. R.A. Dickey's, 2-5 with a 5.36 ERA. And so far, I think the Mets, they've really been vindicated in not re-signing R.A. Dickey, and they got a good prospect in the minors. They got John Buck. So what do you think of that?
Yeah, I think what's fascinating over there in the AL East is that it's almost exactly the opposite of what everyone thought it would be. Again, the season is still young. I think Toronto has plenty of time to turn it around, and they do have the players, I think, to do it. But it's fast going into the season. People were talking about Toronto like they were for sure going to win the division, and you've got Tampa Bay, which has been very good over the last couple of years, and everyone kind of ruled out the Yankees and Boston. And now what's going on in the AL East is you have Boston, which has the best record in baseball, in first place in the division. The Yankees are very close behind them in second place. And Toronto, the only team in the AL that's worse than Toronto is Houston, and that's by far the worst team in baseball. You don't want to be in the same conversation as Houston.
No, Houston's really awful. I mean, Toronto's already, it's, only the 5th of May, things can turn around, but they're already 9.5 games back of Boston. Now, even if Boston doesn't keep it up, the Yankees are only a game and a half back, and Baltimore is a game and a half back, but when you're in last place, you have a lot of teams that get, to jump in front of you. So I think Toronto, with all their fanfare and everyone thinking that they're going to be, go 162-0, that's what people thought. That's really not going to happen. I think they're in for a rude awakening. What other surprises do you see in the American or National League?
We can get to the surprise in a second, but I was going to say just about Toronto, that they remind me of Boston a couple of years back when they made a whole bunch of moves in the offseason. They brought in Carl Crawford, they brought in Adrian Gonzalez, and everyone was talking about them like they were going to be amazing just because they got a couple of big names. But both those guys were flops. They already traded, but that's only 2 years ago, and already both those guys are out of Boston. And Boston that year was terrible. They didn't do much of anything, and I think that's kind of the same thing that's going on with Toronto, where you bring in a whole bunch of new players and you get everybody excited, but at the end of the day, they might not be that good of a team. But I'll tell you, the other big surprises this season, Atlanta being first place in the NL East, people are talking about that like that's a surprise, but it's not a huge surprise. They went into the offseason with some goals. They didn't get any huge flashy players the way Toronto did, but they picked up a couple guys that have made a real difference for them. I think getting both Upton brothers was a really smart move. The other thing that's surprising, I think, is that in LA, both of those teams, the Angels and the Dodgers, aren't doing well at all. Both of them are in fourth places in their division. It's similar type of thing with Toronto. They made a whole bunch of transactions over the offseason. It really seemed like they were putting together great teams, but they've both been pretty bad. The Angels, I think, have a better chance than the Dodgers. They have a great offense. They have Pujols, Hamilton, and Trout. Those are three of the best hitters in baseball, all in the same lineup, and they're certainly not the only good players on that team. So I do think that they'll put it together and certainly do better than they're doing now. But the AL West, that's not a division that's a forgiving atmosphere. You fall behind in that division, you might be out of it.
It's not only falling behind in that division because you have Texas on top. Oakland's ahead of you. Seattle, I'm not convinced that they're going to be a great team. But, you have Texas and Oakland ahead of you. But even if you want to get the wild card, you do have other teams in the American League that, might have a good season. You might have, so you have the one winner in the American League East, whether that's going to be Boston, the Yankees, or Tampa, or Baltimore, who knows. But you have Detroit and Kansas City, so the loser of that one is going to be a wild card. So you don't have, and if you have Oakland as a wild card, that's going to be very, very difficult for the Angels to make it even to the playoffs.
And I'll tell you, you mentioned Kansas City. I think that's the other big surprise this season. It's been a long time since Kansas City was a good team. And they've been doing it the right way. Instead of trying to land everybody all at once, they've been adding a little bit at a time and really bringing up young talent. The big move they made this past season was they traded their top prospect, Will Myers, for Tampa Bay's probably second best pitcher, James Shields. And it's too early to tell, who really won that trade. Myers is still in the minors, but Shields been great for them this season. And I think even beyond what he's done on paper, there's a lot of talk that he helped really bring that team together and coalesce a young group of rising stars into a really productive team. But you're absolutely right. I think you have to assume that one of the wild cards is going to come out of the AL East, and that means if you're behind in the AL West, behind Texas, they're an incredible team, and Oakland, they won the division last year, I'm pretty sure, which means you don't even have a chance in your own division.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I believe Oakland won the division the last day of the season, beating out Texas. Texas was ahead for months, and they had a big lead, and they blew it the last week or two. They lost like almost every game.
Yeah.
Yes, but it can be very interesting.
It's still too early in the season probably to rule out anybody. You know, we mentioned Toronto before. They're 10.5 games out of the lead in their division, but could they come back? Maybe. Everybody in the Central is within 6 games of first place. You have to assume teams like Minnesota and the White Sox that have some veteran players that have been to the playoffs before in the last couple of years, they're not out of it. You know, I mean, it's definitely, it could go a whole bunch of different ways over the next couple of weeks, and it'll be interesting to see what teams do as the trading deadline gets a little closer and we get deeper into summer. But the fact that there's 2 wild cards, I think, means come the All-Star break, there are very few teams that are out of this completely other than Houston.
I want to ask your opinion about what would be a worse day for the Mets or Yankees. Last Monday, the Yankees were doing pretty well. They have Andy Pettitte, veteran good pitcher, going against the terrible team, the Houston Astros, and he loses the game 9-1. Yankees on a roll. They're playing at home. They have Andy Pettitte, a good pitcher, and he blows the game 9-1. And it's tough. It was a tough day for Yankee fans. I was at the game, and I left the game, I think, in the 5th inning. I usually don't leave before the final out in the 9th inning, and I just couldn't take it. And it was a cold night, and I had enough, and I left. I think it was either the 4th or 5th inning. It was enough. I went home. That same night, the Mets tied up the game, I believe, in the 9th inning, and went ahead in the 15th inning against the Marlins, who's also a terrible team. They go ahead in the top of the 15th, and then they blow it in the bottom of the 15th. Which team do you think had a worse loss? The Yankees losing 9-1, a very good pitcher against a terrible team, or the Mets going against the Marlins? They get a lead in the top of the 15th, and then they blow it. Which had a worse night?
To me, it's got to be the Mets for a couple of things. I think emotionally it hurts that much more if it's a hard-fought game and you lose it, like that. If you're going till the 15th and you're going through all those ups and downs of the game, and then to lose it like that is tough. I think a game like the one the Yankees had. Listen, there's 162 games in the season. People lose some games. I mean, some of those games you're going to lose to a team like the Astros. But I feel like the team then, they put it behind them and they move on to the next day. When you lose a hard-fought game like the Mets did, and when you have to pitch 15 innings, that means your players are out there for 15 innings. That means you're using practically everyone in the bullpen. It's so much harder to come back the next day from something like that and just play a brand new game. That's almost like playing 2 games out there that night. And you got to assume that everyone goes home exhausted from that, not just physically, but emotionally as well.
Right, and you come home with a loss, it's even worse. I mean, at least the Marlins won that game, so even though they might be exhausted, but at least they won, so they had working off a positive the next day.
I'll tell you, you mentioned the Yankees, and that's been in its own way an interesting surprise this season. They're missing probably, the 4 best players on their team: Granderson, Jeter. I don't know if A-Rod is still that good, but A-Rod and Teixeira, all 4 of them have yet to play, I believe, a single game for the Yankees, and yet the Yankees are doing really well.
Well, the thing I really like about the Yankees this year is that they're fighting. They come back. They're down, let's say 4-1. Let's say today they were down 4-1. They tie up the game. Boone Logan gives up a home run in the 8th inning, so they still lose the game 5-4. But even in the 9th inning, the Yankees had a rally. The Yankees don't pull it out, but they've pulled out a whole bunch of games coming from behind. Last year, even though the Yankees won the Eastern Division, narrowly beating out Baltimore, they didn't have so many come from behind wins. I don't know, what their record was last year from after trailing in the 6th inning, but this year I think they have at least 3 or 4 wins already. It's not maybe 5 or 6. So with this team of not stars, the only star they have maybe right now is Robinson Cano. They're doing very, very well, and I think they're more exciting to watch than even the old Yankees of the last couple of years with an all-star at every position.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is that, I mean, we're used to seeing the Yankees like that with an all-star at every position, and the team they have now is definitely not that. But a lot of the guys who are doing well for them, Lyle Overbay, Vernon Wells, Ichiro Suzuki, Travis Hafner, these are guys who were in the past all-stars. I was watching a Yankee game one day, and I said it's like they got the 2006 all-star team out there, and these guys were great a couple of years ago, which, you know, maybe they're a little bit older. Let's see if they can hold up over the course of the season. But it might just be that these are all guys who still have it and just needed a change of scenery. Vernon Wells had a bunch of bad years out there in L.A., but maybe it's just that he still had it, and L.A. wasn't the place for him.
Well, what they say about what he's doing, he's going to the opposite field, which is one thing he didn't go the last year. He's hitting a lot of balls to right field. Like in one game, he had 3 hits to right field, and they say like all last year, which is hard to believe, that he had 3 hits the whole season to right field. I can't believe that stat. But, you know, going back to the Mets, I mean, do you think they can keep up? I mean, at one time they were leading the league in hitting. You know, John Buck is hitting the best of his career. I mean, David Wright's doing very well. Daniel Murphy, you know, he's a professional hitter. Doesn't hit for a ton of power, but, you know, he gets the job done. Valdez-Spin every once in a while comes up with a clutch home run. But the thing that troubles me a bit...
Duda's been good.
Well, I don't know if Duda's been that good. I mean, he's a very strange hitter. You know, he has 5 home runs, which isn't bad, but he has a total of 8 RBIs. So if you have 8 RBIs and 5 home runs, you know, okay, those are basically you're getting the home runs with nobody on base, and when, you know, you're not getting a single or double to drive in runs. I mean, you have, I mean, all your RBIs are basically through the home run, you know, and so 8 RBIs is not a heck of a lot for a guy that's playing almost every day. And the other fellow who I love, I mean, he had 32 home runs last year, is Ike Davis. He's off to another really, really slow start with 4 home runs, 8 RBIs, and he's batting like 169. I mean, are you concerned about well, you think that Lucas Duda, that's the Met optimist that you are, I guess, so that you think that he's doing well. Do you think Ike Davis is going to pull out of it like he did somewhat last year?
Yeah, I think he can. I think it might just be he's one of these guys that gets a slow start every year. And you know who's like that? Mark Teixeira on the Yankees. So it'll be interesting to see.
Well, that's why it's good that maybe that's why they're doing so well. He's not playing now, so they, you know, so those bad games that he's having would have had, you know, he's not in the lineup. So, you know, instead you have Lyle Overbay at first base, you know, and whatever he does is a plus. So maybe that's why the Yankees are doing so well, because Mark Teixeira's not in a slump.
What will be interesting to see is when Teixeira comes back, is it an April thing or is it the start of the season thing, to see how he comes back when he's going halfway through the season. But Ike Davis, I think he can put it together. I think he's kind of a streaky hitter sometimes. He's still pretty young. Even though he's been playing for 4 years, he's a young guy. He missed a lot of time 2 years ago. I think that was part of what was holding him back last year, but last year he was healthy pretty much the whole year. He just didn't hit all that well. But I think he'll improve. I think he can even exceed what he did last year, and that's basically what the Mets need him to do. I know that you don't agree with me on this one and that you doubt a little bit, but I'll tell you, I think that Lucas Duda is a great hitter. I think he can really do something. He's leading the Mets right now in walks. He seems like he works the count and gets walks all the time, and I think that's just a very good indication of you know, the fact that he can hit well and the fact that he's seeing the ball well. So it'll be interesting to see whether the numbers that he has now holds up over the course of the season. But if they do, I think the Mets have another great young hitter on their hands.
Well, I think the problem with Lucas Duda, I mean, he does walk a lot, which is a terrific thing. I mean, but the problem with him is he strikes out too much. He strikes out about a third of the time. And the same thing with Ike Davis. He also strikes out about a third of the time. And I'm a firm believer, if you put the ball in play, you know, good things will happen. I mean, yes, every once in a while you will hit into that double play, but, you know, if you hit the ball, you know, there can be an error by the defense or something can happen, or, it just goes between the first baseman and the second baseman and it's a squibber out there, or Texas leaguer. You put the ball in play, good things happen. If you don't make contact, that's the end of it. You struck out, that's it. You don't move the runners ahead. So, I'm certainly, not an anti-Met fan. I certainly want the Mets to do well, and, it's certainly good for the city that I live in, and I actually live very close to Citi Field, even though I go to many, many more Yankee games than Met games. But, you've had a lot of good points there. And so what are your predictions for the year? I mean, who do you think is going to make the playoffs? That might be a big surprise. And who do you think is going to be in the World Series? And who do you think is going to take it all? I mean, it's still a long ways to go, but I think, your fortune-telling abilities here in baseball, you might have a new career on your hand. What do you think?
Yeah, I'll tell you this. In terms of going all the way, I'm going to say the same team that I've said the last couple of years, and I think that's the Detroit Tigers. They have an incredible team. They have Justin Verlander, who no doubt is the best pitcher in baseball right now. It's been a long time since we've seen a pitcher be this dominant and this far above everybody else. They have some really dangerous hitting. I think that they'll easily make the playoffs. Even with Kansas City being as good as they are, this is a team to me that has Detroit that has very few weaknesses. And once they get in the playoffs, this is a team that can really, really easily beat others in a short series. But I've been wrong before, and as good as they are, they haven't really put it together yet in terms of a World Series win. But there are definitely other teams out there that I think it'd be very interesting to see Kansas City go to the playoffs. I think they do have the talent to make that happen. Definitely to take a wild card spot. I think we'll see a little bounce back from the Angels and the Dodgers. I think where they're sitting now is not where they'll end up. I think in terms of the NL East, honestly, it's anybody's race, anybody except Miami. I think the Mets could come back and take this division if things break right for them, if they make the right moves around the trade deadline. I don't think that's likely to happen, but I think any of the other three teams, Washington, Philadelphia, Atlanta, could make it. People are very high on Washington. They think they're the team to beat, but I don't have as high an opinion of them. I think Atlanta is very dangerous. But I'll tell you that the team to watch, I think, is Cincinnati out there in the NL Central. They've been a good team for a couple of years, and they have a bunch of young players who are maturing. They're putting the right pieces in place.
They have excellent pitching.
Yeah, and I think that's a team that could take the NL pennant that people aren't thinking too much about. We'll see what happens, but I think it could be a Detroit-Cincinnati World Series.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll speak to you back we're going to speak to you along the way, but we'll find out in October to see how close you were. We're going to record this. I'm going to write this down, and we're going to hold your feet to the fire to see how close you were. And thank you so much for being on the Radio Mike Show on Israel Sports Radio. Thanks, and good night, everybody.
My pleasure. Have a good night.
Hello.